Texas 7 was a gang of inmates that escaped the John B. Connally Unit near Kenedy, Texas, on December 13, 2000. The 7 offenders were named Joseph Garcia, Randy Halprin, Larry James Harper, Patrick Murphy Jr., Donald Newberry, George Rivas, and Michael Anthony Rodriguez. Their daring escape and subsequent evasion piqued the interest of the public and law enforcement alike, with each passing day increasing the intensity of the manhunt. Their faces appeared everywhere, and the media quickly christened them the Texas 7. As they traveled across Texas, they arrived at Irving on December 24, 2000. Their plans changed dramatically in Irving when they attempted to loot Oshman's sports goods store. Murphy, stationed as a lookout, remained vigilant while monitoring radio broadcasts for signals of trouble. However, their hopes for a successful heist were dashed, and the situation swiftly spiraled out of hand. The failed heist turned into a violent encounter, resulting in a fatal outcome. The resulting commotion catapulted the Texas 7 into the national spotlight, emphasizing the importance of their capture. As the authorities closed in, the once elusive fugitives were cornered, facing the unavoidable consequences of their daring escape. The Texas 7 case is a terrifying reminder of the lengths people will go to achieve freedom and the grave ramifications that ultimately follow. Murphy stated that he had warned his companions about the presence of law enforcement nearby and asked them to leave, but his concerns were ignored. He claimed he was directed to drive away, which he said he did. As the group attempted to depart through the store's rear exit, they were suddenly confronted by Irving police officer Aubrey Hawkins. In a terrifying exchange of gunfire, all 6 men opened fire on Hawkins, causing significant injuries and leaving him with 11 gunshot wounds. Rivas tragically struck Hawkins with a vehicle during their attempted escape. The fugitives then vanished from sight, remaining elusive for weeks until a critical tip surfaced in late January, locating them in Colorado. Rivas and 3 others were captured while holed up at a caravan park near Woodland Park, Colorado, which is adjacent to Colorado Springs. Harper, on the other hand, died tragically, committing suicide before authorities could arrest him. After a tense standoff, the final 2 fugitives were captured at a hotel in Colorado Springs, marking the culmination of an intense manhunt that spanned multiple states and captured the nation's attention. The rigorous 6-week manhunt was finally over. The 6 fugitives were quickly apprehended, and they returned to Texas to face prosecution. Each of them was eventually convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death. 4 of the 6 convicted individuals have already been executed, with their punishments carried out according to the law. However, 2 of the original 6, Randy Halprin and Patrick Murphy, remain on execution row, their cases enmeshed in legal proceedings and appeals. Randy Halprin, a Jewish death row inmate and member of the gang responsible for the fatal shooting of a police officer in 2000 following their escape, attempted to have his conviction reversed and a new trial granted. This plea stems from allegations that the presiding judge, Vickers Cunningham, exhibited anti-Semitic bias during the proceedings, as determined by a court ruling. Legal representatives for Halprin asserted that Judge Cunningham, formerly serving in Dallas, made use of racial slurs and anti-Semitic language when referring to the inmate and several of his co-defendants. These allegations cast doubt on the fairness and impartiality of the trial, which prompted calls for a review of the case and the potential for a retrial to ensure justice is served without prejudice. Cunningham's actions during the trial included the use of insulting language, including racist, homophobic, and anti-Semitic slurs aimed at Halprin and the other fugitive criminals tried under his jurisdiction. Judge Cunningham's use of such language was not only disrespectful, but also a kind of racism, as it combined the attribution of group traits with the exercise of control over the person subjected to it. Cunningham retired from the bench in 2005 and went into private legal practice in Dallas. Halprin's case proceeded to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, the ultimate authority responsible for rendering the final decision regarding the potential overturning of his conviction and the possibility of a new trial. In a significant development, the appeals court intervened by suspending Halprin's execution in 2019, pending further review. Tevon Shartle, one of Halpern's legal representatives, said the Constitution provides only one remedy in cases of judicial bias, and that is to vacate the biased court's judgment and start over with the chance at a fair trial before an unbiased judge. He said they were confident that the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals would follow the law, accept the state's concessions, and adopt the trial court's recommendations. This statement underscored the expectation for a just and equitable resolution, emphasizing the need for adherence to legal principles and procedural fairness in the pursuit of justice for Halpern. In October 2021, Judge Layla Mays concluded that Cunningham had infringed upon Halpern's fundamental right to a fair trial and recommended the overturning of his death sentence. However, the appeals court, in May, mandated the convening of an evidentiary hearing before it could proceed with deliberating on the case. Judge Mays's ruling followed a 3-day trial held in August in Dallas, during which several witnesses, including Cunningham's brother and 2 lifelong family friends, provided testimony. Their accounts detailed instances where the former judge had purportedly employed explicit anti-Semitic and racial slurs both before and after Halpern's 2003 trial, directed towards him and several other escaped inmates. These revelations shed light on the pervasive bias exhibited by Cunningham, further underscoring the imperative for a thorough examination of the circumstances surrounding Halpern's trial. Following the disqualification of the Dallas County District Attorney's Office, the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office assumed responsibility for addressing legal matters related to Halpern's allegations. In September, prosecutors from Tarrant County submitted court documents contending that Halpern deserved a new trial due to the demonstrated actual bias exhibited by Cunningham towards the inmate. Cunningham refuted accusations of racial bigotry, asserting in a 2018 interview with the Dallas Morning News that his living trust incentivized his children to marry individuals who identified as straight, white Christians. He had previously expressed opposition to interracial marriages, although he later conveyed to the newspaper that his stance on such unions had transformed. In her ruling, Judge Mays characterized Cunningham's viewpoints as emblematic of a white Christian nationalist ideology. In contrast, Murphy, now 62 years old, has largely refrained from participating in interviews following his most recent stay of execution. However, when he engaged with the media, he approached discussions with an open demeanor in which he addressed all topics without reservation. Despite his discomfort with being associated with the label the Texas Seven, Murphy acknowledged the reality of their collective identity. Murphy met the other men, as 6 of them worked in the maintenance department. Initially convicted of aggravated sexual assault, Murphy had been nearing the completion of his sentence, with approximately 5 years remaining at the time of the escape. Reflecting on his actions, Murphy expressed profound remorse, admitting that he grapples with regret on a daily basis. He acknowledged a fundamental transformation within himself, attributing this change in part to his conversion to Buddhism. Murphy elaborated on how his spiritual journey has facilitated inner peace, characterizing his past as a dark period from which he has since emerged. On March 28, 2019, Patrick Murphy braced himself for what he believed would be his final moments on Earth. As the scheduled execution loomed, he found himself mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually prepared for the ultimate step into the unknown. Seeking solace in his faith, Murphy had requested the presence of a Buddhist spiritual leader in the execution chamber, a request that was denied by the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. In response, his legal team swiftly filed an appeal, arguing that Murphy's religious rights had been violated. Awaiting his fate in Huntsville, Murphy underwent the solemn rituals of a condemned man, indulging in his last meal, bidding farewell in his final phone calls, and mentally preparing to be escorted to the gurney where he would meet his end. As the clock ticked closer to the appointed hour of 6 p.m., Murphy's anticipation mingled with dread as the hours passed without any sign of the execution team. For 4 agonizing hours, he stared into the abyss of mortality, grappling with the looming specter of death. Then, unexpectedly, a ray of hope pierced through the darkness as the assistant warden entered his cell with astonishing news. A stay of execution had been granted. Murphy's emotions swirled in a tumult of relief, disbelief, and a lingering sense of disappointment at the unexpected reprieve. In the ensuing months, Murphy's journey on death row continued to be fraught with uncertainty. Despite being given another execution date 8 months later, which was also suspended, following a ruling by a U.S. district judge citing valid concerns regarding the execution policy of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Nearly 5 years have elapsed since that fateful day, yet Murphy remains in limbo, aware that at any moment he could once again be faced with the prospect of his own mortality. Reflecting on his situation, Murphy acknowledged his past actions, but maintained that the death penalty was an unjust punishment, particularly as he did not directly participate in the murder of Officer Aubrey Hawkins. Murphy's involvement with the Texas Seven led to his conviction and sentencing under Texas law's doctrine of parties. However, guided by his Buddhist faith, Murphy sought inner peace and acceptance, urging himself and others to move forward from the shadows of the past toward a path of redemption and reconciliation. The saga of the Texas Seven remains a landmark in American criminal history, sparking reforms in prison security. Please feel free to share your opinion in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, or email at crimesabroad@outlook.com for more cases.